Welcome back and join the discussion using the hashtag State of Affairs across all social media platforms. Tonight, we're discussing social media. Should it be blocked on election day? Well, yesterday, the IGP started a discussion and it's got everybody talking, especially social media buffs like me. I can't live without Twitter, but we'll see how that discussion will pan out tonight. And I'm going to do that discussion with, I'll start with you. Kina Likimani, she's a project lead at Ghana Decides, and she belongs to Blogging Ghana as well. And Samuel Fifi Battels Esquire, you know him, sports presenter. Tonight he's not doing the sports. Yeah, the red shows you that Manchester United has just signed Jose Mourinho. Yeah, you're red, aren't you?
No comment.
Comments reserved, right? And then Kukwa Manful, she's an architecture researcher and also a blogger. You're all welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll start with you, Samuel Fifi Battels, because you are a lawyer specializing in technology, media, and telecommunications law.
Yes.
So when you heard the news yesterday from the IGP, what was the first thing you thought of as a lawyer?
Well, I wasn't surprised because it's only symptomatic of the piecemeal way in which we approach some of these things. Now, I know you follow the news, so you know that this development is merely a combination of similar comments that have been passed. You remember very well there was a call for action to be taken against users on social media after the photograph of the cars in the car park was taken and uploaded on social media. And then earlier this month, around the 10th and the 11th, Atu Sapong, who is the Deputy Minister of Communications, speaking at the psychology conference, said there's a national policy on social media. And I was wondering, what is that intended to do? And he says it's been prepared, and when it's ready, it will come out. And it's just generally something that was bound to come up for discussion. As a country, we should have, a long time ago, started this conversation. But as we normally do it, people in authority tend to take the position that as and when it suits them, they come out and make statements which go in their favor without necessarily looking at the legal basis of it or throwing it up for discussions that involves the citizens in shaping policy making. So I wasn't totally surprised. I think it's good that it's come up. It allows us to set the record straight and state it as it is. So people in their small corner will not think of starting policies or taking actions which in the end do not to the benefit of our democracy.
Okay, but is it fair enough for anybody to think that that consideration, the intent at all, is, infringing on our rights? Because the right to information and communication is guaranteed in our Constitution. So the intent alone does get people squirming in discomfort.
I don't think we should take that path. But since you started with the law, yes, Article 21 of the Constitution says all persons shall have the right to freedom of speech and expression, which shall include freedom of express and other media, which is a portion people don't normally read, which shall include freedom of the press, which we already know about, and other media, which in this case would include social media and new media, generally speaking. Now, there are no absolute rights. And that's how come, despite Article 162, which guarantees freedom of the media, and Article 163, in Article 164 of the Constitution, it says the provisions, that is Article 162 and 163, are subject to laws that are reasonably required in the interest of national security, public order, public morality, and for the purpose of protecting the reputations and freedoms of others. This provision literally comes out of what we call the ICCPH, International Convention for Civil and Political Rights, which makes similar provisions because there are no absolute rights. You have freedom of expression, there's freedom of the media, but that is also subject to certain rights. But at the end of the day, it's a balancing act. So for instance, when you decide to limit people's freedom of expression in the interest of public morality, national security, as this case may be, the question then becomes, is the limitation proportional to the rights that you are seeking, not necessarily to curtail, but to manage, so that it doesn't become a case of killing a fly with a sledgehammer? And in most cases that have come before the international court, it becomes a balancing act. So what do you seek to do? You seek to ensure that there isn't too much insecurity and there isn't a lot of spread of panic. Now, is it proportional to seek to achieve that end by shutting down all social media platforms? Clearly that's not proportional. And so it becomes a bit excessive of an action to even consider when you talk about shutting down social media. And again, we'll have to look at the context of everything. And I say let's not limit it to just elections because it's a broader discussion. So elsewhere, they realized that with social media and the online world emerging, primarily everything was transformed. Even business has been transformed. Initially, you'd have had a face-to-face contract with somebody. Now you do it online. The nature of the disputes that may arise is completely different. Now, in the same vein, certain offenses which existed in our Criminal Offences Act, for instance, become a bit more difficult to enforce because of online presence and social media. And I'll give you a typical example. Elsewhere, they have decided to introduce new offenses as and when it's necessary, like revenge porn, because nothing in their legislations enabled them to take action against somebody who had put up the nude images of somebody, not just as a way of circulating pornography, but as a way of causing psychological distress to somebody. And so in the UK, for instance, they have a law on what? Revenge porn. And what they have done is, if an offense is an offense offline, it necessarily has to be an offense what? Online. So the way to go is not to shut things down, but to find better ways, right, of using the existing law. So for instance, if you hurt somebody's reputation on social media, it's as much defamation as offline.
Of course.
Clearly. Now, if your communication is malicious in any way, it's as much defamation. Now, a typical example of an offense. So there's this offense in our laws, Section 281 of our Criminal and Other Offences Act, which refers to obscenity, which says that for the purposes of trade or distribution or public exhibition, makes, produces, or has in its possession any one or more obscene writings, drawings, printings, paintings. If this is an offense offline, it necessarily is an offense what? Online as well.
Right.
But the challenge with online then becomes anonymity. So rather than decide the way to go is to shut it, where you limit a person's freedom of expression. And freedom of expression necessarily also means a person's right to have an opinion, to receive information, and also to impart information, which is what happened on social media. So just to sum it up, the steps that was outlined by the IGP, as far as everything I've outlined in the law is concerned, is rather disproportional.
Okay. All right, Ken, I'll come to you. Now, you have been talking a lot about this issue since morning. I can imagine how tired you probably are right now. But of course, it's something we can't develop a fatigue for. But what did you think? What did you make of it?
Well, first of all, I think that we, like Sami said, we've been hearing a lot. When you go, go to forums, you go to workshops, and people just throw it out. Social media should be banned on election day. So I have to say that for the IGP to say it yesterday, it's an opportunity. I mean, I've been urging calm because the elections are not today and they are not tomorrow. Right. Since the IGP himself has linked police action to social media, it's an opportunity for us to engage with the police because a lot of in fact, what happens with technology is that the citizens, in this particular case, we've been ahead of the government in terms of like their presence on social media, in terms of their own policing of social media and their understanding of what is going on. So there's a huge gap. So it's an opportunity. Having said that, the idea that they are considering it, while also in his statement, while also admitting that perhaps they themselves should get on social media, was a bit unconsidered. And it is not. I've been framing the idea that social media should be banned in the larger context of our democracy. In other words, it is not a democratic best practice. Now, it's problematic when you say that, when people say it happened in Uganda. And I'm not here to say we are better than Uganda, Uganda is better than us, right? But President Museveni is not President Mahama. The Ugandan constitution is not the Ghanaian 1992 constitution. So that when people say, oh, it's happened in Uganda, there's a specific context to the Ugandan situation in these elections that made it possible for them to want to do that. And they went further. They were repressive towards the opposition candidate. There's been a whole lot of stuff that's been going on. On the other hand, here we are in Ghana. We agreed amongst ourselves as a people that we would be democratic in 1992. We have been on a certain path from 1992 to 2016. When we started the democracy, we understood that it is a learn as you go, a capacity building. And there is a certain kind of a certain kind of Ghanaian that kicks in election year, and especially on election day. And I particularly remember even the day that the election petition was, the judgment was given. The way we policed ourselves, the police didn't have to come and say anything. Ghanaians decided to stay home. We stayed home and stared at the TV until Justice Atuguba came, and it was, 3 minutes, and we are like, oh, that's it. Tomorrow back to our lives. So we have built our capacity and our ability as citizens to deal with issues. And so the larger question is, one, it's not a democratic best practice. Two, what does this say about us? If faced with challenges, I'm not particularly challenged by social media. That is because I work on it. And we promote it, we educate people. We do Ghana Decides, and it is funded by Star Ghana, I must say. And our project is to inform young people and marginalized groups about our governance and to help them make informed decisions at the polling booth. So, but the issue is that we have this platform to which a lot of education has to be done. So I'm urging for calm among all of us who are so outraged by what the IGP has done. But we all stand, is disproportional. There are challenges. There are laws even in Ghana here. There was that case of the young woman whose boyfriend released the nude pictures and she took him to court. So we may need more laws, but what we do not need is, we don't need repression. And that social media, like any other media, has challenges. There are negative sides, but there are overwhelming positive sides. We do not say we are going to close down the entire traditional media space because there are some bad apples operating over here. Right. And I've been telling everybody, institutions need to come on social media. So it is a tool for transformation, like he has said. And we welcome this opportunity to work with the IGP. But no, we'll be fighting any consideration to ban it.
Okay. Kuko, my question, I'm going to read a comment from John Benjamin this morning. He was asked on Twitter about this consideration. And he asked, isn't shutting down social media, even for a day, a regressive step incompatible with a democratic open society? You're a social media probably addict.
Just
a bit.
Recovering.
A recovering addict.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now, can you go a day without Twitter or Instagram or Facebook?
Definitely now I can. There was a time I couldn't. Now, like I said, I'm a
So
recovering
in election
addict.
day, you wouldn't be bothered?
Yes. I'd like to come from the part of a former social media addict, or someone that's on social media with a lot of young people like herself, and also speak to Kina's earlier point about Ghana being a different sort of society with a different constitution than Uganda, and bring it from the point that I'm seeing people on my social media platforms bring it across, because we're online, and then it becomes a small world on social media, and suddenly something that's happening in Congo, suddenly something that's happening in Uganda feels like it's happening just close to me. And people have seen this play out. At least I can think of 3 big examples so far: in Turkey, in Uganda, and in Congo, where they have shut down social media, and it has never been with a good intention. So again, I agree and I accept, as Fifi and Kina have said, that it's a different constitution. Our president is not Museveni, but
he's not seeking a 5th term.
He's not. It's different.
Yeah.
But there's this suspicion. And I also like to go back to the fact that a lot of people in my generation do not know the fear of not being able to speak your mind in Ghana. We don't know that fear of gunshots, of a regime change. We don't know it. So we have grown up spoiled and being able to speak our mind when we want and how we want. So this is uncomfortable, and it's unacceptable. And honestly, it seems to me as a bunch of frightened people who are seeing social media as a strange thing and forgetting that, like, I know a lot of them are on WhatsApp. I have uncles and mothers, like, forgetting that even the daily devotionals they send us every morning are spreading information which most of the time is unwanted and unsolicited. Yeah. But this is happening, and we need to own the spaces. And for instance, I suggested recently on my Twitter that Ghana police have a verified account, because there's this new trend where people put a photo of someone up there, up on Twitter, and say this person is wanted for defrauding someone. Yeah. But how do we know it's true? Fix your account, and when we see that it's coming from Ghana Police verified Twitter account, then we take it seriously. So it's so simple. I know they can see you for verification tips, but it's so simple. Yeah. Just you have interns coming through every year, people who spend their free time already on social media. Give them training, and then give them a supervisor, and then manage your social media accounts. It is so simple.
Okay, now I'll have to come to. I want to speak to Kena in a bit, but could there be a repercussion for the IGP's comment yesterday? Could he be taken on in the law court for even sharing a consideration of that sort?
The question is, take him on for what? He hasn't done anything yet.
So it's not possible?
Nah. I mean, why would you waste your time going to court over this? Because at the end of the day...
For considering an action.
What remedy would you be seeking in the law courts? I don't think it will be worth anybody's time.
To stop the police in its tracks?
But it's again tells us something that we are concerned about when it comes to policymakers. I think this wasn't well considered, the statement. And that if the police has difficulty coming up with a solution to dealing with some of the excesses on social media, the best thing was to have done a lot of consultation extensively with people who are engaged in that space and people who are experts in that area. And then not just made a general statement, but then made a more informed statement that based on this, we think this and this and this is what we will do. Because at the end of the day, you've been dealing with traditional media, which is relatively slower as compared to social media. And there are more complications with social media. There's the issue of ownership. The servers are not based here in Ghana. So the issue of jurisdiction itself becomes a bigger issue. So then recently, after the UK elections in 2015, there was an analysis that was done by Reuters on social media. And they said this had been the most social media influenced elections ever. And in 2016, this election potentially could be our biggest social media impacted elections ever. So obviously then, from policymakers to politicians to everybody else, because I do remember Labour invited blue states, who were the ones who consulted for Obama, to run their social media campaign. Because it gives you a level of engagement that traditional media cannot give you. Now, until you read the messages, nobody's message can be heard on this platform. Until you open the phone line, somebody cannot call into this program. But in real time on social media, on Twitter, there can be engagement. That's how come he spoke about the police having a verified account. So I think one of the ways out of this is engagement. So at the end of the day, there are lots of people on social media. Majority are just networking for good. There are a few bad nuts. But how do you counter them? By ensuring that as many false information as there is out there, there's the genuine information being pushed out there, and the people who have the genuine information are willing to engage people and quickly put it out to counter that information. So perhaps I'm hoping that as we speak now, the police are thinking about undergoing this consultation process that I'm talking about in order to prepare towards the election, so that it doesn't come when we are unprepared and we are rather thinking of the most radical of decisions.
Okay. Now, can I come to you? Because the police, they're not as IT compliant as we all expect them to be. I mean, I haven't seen a police Twitter account, whether it's a spoof or real. I'm yet to see a Ghana police Twitter account. And they're probably thinking about the strain on security apparatus. Already we keep talking about logistics for the police. We talk about personnel, inadequate personnel. So they are also looking at it from another side, thinking about, you know, what we have and how to deal with people on social media. Remember, not long ago we heard about that, was it an earthquake? You remember that message went viral and people were so scared. Via text message. Till date, we haven't been able to find the source of that info. So, can you understand where the police is also coming from?
I completely understand when you don't know and what you're saying completely. But that's why we are, like he said, Ghana Decides Blogging Ghana, we are here to help. In 2012, we built into the project training of institutions. We didn't get a positive response from the police.
Oh, really?
We did work with EC. EC released the results on Facebook in 2012. So I'm hoping that this time, since they themselves have brought it up, I am not here to give pointers to security organizations as to why they can better their security using social media. But the point is, look, the CIA is on social media.
Yeah.
Every day they send out tweets. The other day they did something. They decided to tweet in real time the rage on Abbottabad. Exactly.
Yeah.
So the CIA, I mean, if you're in security, the CIA is on social media. The FBI is on social media. There are some African countries where their police is on social media. The military is on social media. So what I want to tell the Ghanaian police is, in fact, you have to be on social media because it is where some of the citizens are. It's where you can help people can help you in your job. You could inform us. you know, it's not just the police, but like ECG needs a better platform. Maybe they don't want to because we complain too much. But a lot of institutions must be on it because of the direct connection and contact with citizens and with people around the world. The level of engagement in terms of institution to citizen is unparalleled. But it does require resources, but I don't think that it is resources that they cannot meet. We can help them. We can provide training. At no cost to them, we'll find funding to do it. So we make that offer. Exactly, we make that offer to the police. In terms of what does it take to go forward, you need. It's like you know. I keep saying that there was this whole thing about I think some politician. I think it was Bawumia going somewhere to give a lecture, and it was mines, right? Or even the KNUST. The incident where they said they were showing a sex tape live.
Right.
If at that time KNUST was online or Mines was online, look, it's a statement. You talk to your vice chancellor. You say, what should we say? In real time, it goes out. We are going to counter it. Institutions can no longer afford not to be on social media because I don't do branding.
You feel they don't understand it.
I feel they don't understand it, and also you see, and here I'm going to be a little, let me say, colloquial. We haven't decolonized. People don't understand the concept of freedom. And also, they don't understand we are a threat. You see, in the stance between governance, security, and the citizen is a threat. So what we are trying to say is that remove that whole concept. The citizen is also an ally. So, and where do you find citizens that are allies free of charge? Social media. So it is not, and they don't know, but it's like we say, they are all using WhatsApp. I mean, if you're police IGP Kudal and you are using WhatsApp, you're using social media. Yeah. You already know what you can do with it. I was with there was an engagement with political parties, the youth leaders, and they were like, we run our meetings on WhatsApp.
Yeah. Can I just add
the whole campaigning in terms of how political parties have ramped up. So it's almost as though, I don't know where this is coming from, because if both political parties and institutions are going to be honest with themselves, they would come and in fact encourage. The problem with social media is two things. Primarily, it's an issue of inclusion. We do a lot of things in English. Ghana has a relatively low literacy rate. So there is a barrier. And for those of us, we want more women, more marginalized groups. We want to call for an increase in our literacy rate. We need programs. We need people to be literate and so they can participate. The other problem is access issues relating to infrastructure and relating to cost. It's still costly. I mean, there's a certain kind of Ghanaian who can afford to be online. And so there are organizations and coalitions like the Affordable Association or something for Affordable Internet. And so these are the two main real issues. And so these are the things that we should work on, but not to eradicate the space. It's the space that embraces. And the kinds of citizen engagement and information, as you know, that goes on social media, runs from entertainment to sports to governance. I mean, my passion is books and reading. And a lot of the times I'm talking about books and reading to people asking me about books. I'm talking about the books I've read. I have a blog.
She's Amate Edu's daughter, by the way.
You had to say that. Yes.
Well, the moment you start talking about books.
Exactly. So Kukwa does her architecture. She does a whole thing with social architecture. And in fact, the writer Tejuko gave a lecture in New York where he was talking about Pan-Africanist cities. He talked about Lagos, he talked about Brooklyn, and he talked about Twitter. Twitter is a Pan-African network. It's a Pan-African platform. Just as I was on my way here, someone tweeted that the government of Namibia, following in the footsteps of the government of Ghana, has banned. They've eradicated visa requirements for Africans visiting their country. And traditional media will be slow to. In fact, traditional media never even pick this up. Course. Exactly. So we would urge calm on behalf of the security forces, but would also urge them that it suits their work. This is a platform unlike any other. It suits their work to be on social media, to be advocates for security on social media.
Okay. Sammy, you wanted to?
Yes, I wanted to add as well that a lot of times the security services are better off looking at things not just from the negative point of view, but also looking at the opportunities that it presents. My worry is that this is the police who have spoken. but there may be a possibility that this goes deeper than the police. Well, is national security considering a policy intervention? Have they thought it through completely, or is it a knee-jerk reaction? In which case, people's freedoms will be trampled upon. And as I've said, freedoms have got limits. There are legal limits, but they have to be proportionate. Now, the other thing is that, so one of the things that came out of the Snowden revelations in the US was the extent to which security forces, for instance, track potential crime and generally what is going on with social media. And I explained to you, before the advent of social media, security services sat there, and if they wanted to know generally what the trend was, there was no way of knowing it. And so they literally operated in the darkness. So you have security operatives turn up, go through your garbage because they are trying to find out how you think, what you do, what you eat. But guess what? This is bumper harvest. People essentially, out of their own volition, put things on social media. And at the risk of, breaching privacy, if you do not breach privacy, but literally just crank the figures and look at the scope of things and say, okay, this is where things are going. This has been reported. There are things that get reported on social media that never reach the police hotline. So it becomes an opportunity then to get onto the trouble spots and react, or through your analysis of the trends on social media, decide how to take proactive measures, especially with hotspots and trouble spots. So again, they should begin to see this as a general issue and an opportunity for them to engage, as opposed to see this as an opportunity to crash a movement on social media. And in many ways, I think this has been fueled more by a lot of the political rhetoric, which is causing all this.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go to with Kukua, because when I'm not on Facebook, but sometimes, I see screenshots of some politicians or people who love politics on Facebook, and some of the things they put out there, it is just cataclysmic. You just wonder, why do people take this path? Is it because nobody is monitoring them on social media? So you probably would understand the Ghana police, the extent of abuse on social media.
Yes, but that's not enough reason to block it completely. And again, this is something I've been saying all the time.
So they should probably block it a bit?
No, not block it a bit, but these same people, like you said, they are politicians. They have power and access to have their voice heard. They will go and say this on radio, and they had been, and they'll continue to do when you block all social media platforms. And back to how the police can use this, isn't it perfect if someone tweets an update from their polling center, geolocated, and you know in real time what's happening there? There's supposed to be a policeman at every station. If you have a WhatsApp platform for all the policemen in your district and they're reporting what's happening in real time, isn't this perfect for a police service that wants to have eyes everywhere? Instead of waiting the day after, because again, like with my Ghana Decides hats, we've heard horror stories of ballot boxes not being collected in the evening after the ballot, and then like the station master takes it home. Yeah. And then when they come for it, he gives there's so much you can get for it. I admit there's abuse and there's bad things happening, but that's not reason enough to block it and ban everybody for it.
Okay, now you mentioned traditional media earlier, and I just want to refer to the statement from the GJA yesterday, and the president actually said that blocking social media will have an adverse effect, adverse effect on the work of traditional media. It just draws my mind back to the Arab Spring, when international media houses were not allowed into Egypt, for instance, and how social media, the use of social media in Egypt and other Arab nations actually gave us live reports. The BBC and others were all relying on social media. So I just thought, okay, somebody should probably get the police service a piece to read on the positives of social media. They're probably looking at just the negatives of social media. But Kena, I also want to speak to you about something very important. I mean, you're coming from Ghana Decide, so you're looking at all the issues that are important to Ghanaians as we go to the polls. Is there any way, or have you ever, found at any point in time the importance of social media to the electorate? Does it matter to the electorate, or do they care?
They do, they do, and we, for instance, we've run this. This is the second time we've run a Get Out registration campaign called I Registered, where people know they can come online and ask, "Oh, I'm in Tesano. Where are the polling? Where are the registration centers?" Right. We've run Get Out the Vote campaigns on social media, so it does matter. And it's, in fact, we have Blowing Ghana also has another project called Inform Ghana. When we first did Ghana Decides, we found that civil society had a lot of information sitting on their shelves, to which people online would benefit from, and it would inform some of our outrage. Let's say, you know, for instance, that there's something that doesn't work right, but you don't have the foundations on which to discuss it and the information. So again, Inform Ghana was funded by Star Ghana, and what we did was to take the information from CSOs and put it in packets that, you know, in formats that citizens can easily consume. So that could be tweets, blogs, infographics, and stuff like that. So social media is important to the electorate, because it's not just about elections. You see, it's about engagement, and in fact, if that's what it only serves, like, maybe there are only 2 million Ghanaians on it, but it is growing. We've seen a huge ramp up in how political parties are using the stuff. But what I also want to say is that if you are a citizen, an institution, an organization, a government, interested in engaging with citizens, I have something to share with people. If you are interested, if you are a service provider, and you want to better increase your service. If you have a regulatory role like PURC, imagine if PURC had been online and they had just done a Twitter poll to say, well, do you feel you are being overcharged by ECG? All that has happened this week with telling ECG not to charge, that would have happened a long time ago, because they would have gotten the feedback. At least they would have known there is something afoot, because you would have gotten instant. You can do so much. So if you are interested, from the citizen, look, there are people, I'm not religious, but you know, there are people that are religious accounts, there are pastors, there are all sorts of... The Pope is on. So and if you are exactly, if you...
Oh, really?
And even I've heard Juju Mentua advertising on Instagram. Okay, so if you provide a service, and if you have a regulatory role, if you're an activist, or if you have a passion and you want to engage and you care about imparting information, you care about getting feedback, you have to be on social media, because there's just nowhere else you're going to get this in the way in which it is so viral. But in fact, talking about traditional, and it's free. Talking about traditional media, you know, BBC always puts stuff out and then I troll them. I don't like the BBC, but it's been amazing. Even organizations, huge media organizations like the BBC, how they have completely ramped up and changed their whole platform because of social media. New York Times is embarking on a full digital platform. So it's not that this is not going anywhere. And so it doesn't suit us. Again, I always come back to how it doesn't suit where Ghana wants to go. It doesn't suit the path that we are on. It is not a democratic best practice. It does not lead to the freedom of Ghanaians. It curbs our right of speech, our right to information, our rights to congregate. And it's just not something we should be. I'm glad he said it. I'm glad Kudolo said it, because then it gives us an opportunity to engage.
Talk about it.
But it is not where we should be heading.
Okay, because I mean, really and truly, you look around on Instagram. Everybody's taking advantage of Instagram, from hairdressers to makeup to shoemakers.
Which brings me to a very important point. We don't have the homogeneous population. The demographics there's such a diversity and a variety. Now, when we did registration this year for people who have just turned 18 years or people who hadn't registered, we registered in excess of 1 million people. Statistics put our young adult population almost at 6 million. Now, in 2008, I was a morning show host, and one of the ways we engaged people through elections was to do sessions in local communities. So we had programs in places like the University of Ghana. And even then, apart from the students who were so politically conscious and belonged to the baby political parties on campus, and also the students pretty much just sauntered along and went to their lectures. Because for a certain population, it's really difficult to engage them effectively when it comes to national issues. And they would be on these platforms. They will be on Instagram, they will be on Twitter, they will be on Facebook. So it becomes a very easy way of holding politicians to account and to effectively transmit information to these people. Things that ideally you would not be able to do, because a young person tunes in the morning, hears the political hubbub and loud noise and decides I'm not interested. So I tune to a station that's playing music, or I tune to a station that is addressing young people's issues. So where do you get them? You get them on social media. And other people have used this very effectively. So it appeals to a niche group of people who, in this 2016 elections, primarily will have social media as their source of information. And about the falsehood, again, even the social media platforms are alive to the fact that there are certain things that go on social media which are either unwholesome or false. And so Facebook, for instance, over the period, keeps adjusting its settings to do takedowns. Last week, I'm sure you monitored the story about the picture of the naked father with the naked baby, which was taken down. There are several instances in the past where there's been complaints and where you can report to the social media platform, because they also exercise a measure of responsibility when it comes to social media. So there are also this inherent built mechanisms to ensure that certain things are not perpetuated on social media. So by shutting it down, you're effectively disconnecting a very large population, part of this population, who would have a say, and it's their democratic right to know what's going on in this election.
Kokua, I mean, you're very young, probably the youngest on this table. And do you feel, I mean, I'm moving away from the IGP and the consideration they've had. Hopefully they drop that consideration. But do you feel that politicians or the political parties are actively connecting with young people like you enough on social media?
Yeah, and generally they are not. But there are good examples. One that comes to mind now is Honorable Anna Tete, who's very, not so much now, but was very active on Twitter.
I wonder why.
I don't know if you remember, there was this, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name of the company, but there was this Ghanaian who had an accident working with an international company.
In South Africa.
Yeah,
and you alerted.
And then in a matter of hours, she was on the case. And if I didn't have her and I didn't have Twitter, how would I have gone to Ministry of, like, how would I have had access to her to report this situation? Because she has a lot to do. There's a lot of people.
In fact, you go to the office, there'll be a long bureaucracy.
They won't even let you in.
You wouldn't see them.
But instantly, you get to her. I see Nana Oyelitha has gotten very active. She recently won a Blogging Ghana award. When, with this KNUST sex tape, as soon as it came, I saw people flooding her account, reporting to her. When something happens, they tag her. And she goes on and she can't ignore it because someone tags her and there's 60 retweets. And it's unprecedented. There's like direct access to this person who is in charge of your affairs. President Mahama he doesn't engage much with his followers, but he has an account and it's there. He puts out the projects he does and things like that. The MPP, I don't have the figures now, but the MPP Twitter account wasn't that active at first, but in the past 2 months I've been tracking, have grown almost 300,000 followers, and they're engaging, and it's in line with the kind of things that they are trying to do. So it's helping. Like, I really don't know where it's coming from, because we can see access from both sides. When I say both, like, there are two parties. From all sides, because you go to Pakwesi Ndum is so active on Facebook, engages, responds to comments on his posts, and it's helping. It's increasing visibility. So it's such a perfect, easy opportunity. I don't have to go to a town hall meeting to have my voice heard. I can just tweet at you, and then you see it.
And it's so convenient and cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not paying for anything.
No.
I mean, I have to support what she said and really commend Nana Oyelitha, because you can see that she's been using all the tools that she has access to further her work and to educate us. I mean, it's been amazing, actually, watching her. I don't know what I think she tweets it most of the time, but you also can tell when someone is helping her out. But in terms of like images, videos, information, in this particular area where we need to be as a country very active in terms of social protection and gender and children, and she has been amazing. So she's won an award. So so we would, in fact, we would urge her to talk to the IGP to do some for us.
But it's not disappointing. I find it disappointing that you just extolled Nana Oyelitha, who won an award for her social media activities, and there are several other ministers, including the president. This issue, when it came up, or this discourse that we are having, it's a matter of principle, it's a matter of our democracy, it's a matter of people's fundamental human rights. I'm disappointed that the line of conversation have been skewed along political lines. And you'd expect to hear somebody like, I know later was very active on social media, come out to say, no, I use this platform to reach people. These are the benefits of these platforms.
So we should be hearing from
I'm
them. They should be
against
tweeting
any
about...
step.
But
Because it's a matter of
but you see,
principle
it's
and
not
it's in
just
a general
there.
interest. And there are several
there is a
others.
hypocrisy, especially in traditional media. Today has been particularly
Take a statement.
frustrating for me because it's like social media issues come up and then all of a sudden traditional media, you are embracing, you are honest. But a lot of them are like, so social media bad. You know, meanwhile, they are using WhatsApp. Meanwhile, they are using Twitter, Facebook,
And
to
they're getting
support
a lot
their
of
work.
information. I
And
mean,
they are
social
getting
media gives you
precisely.
leads.
Yes.
It gives you
Precisely.
so much.
I don't listen to radio shows live anymore. I look at the tweets coming on. So it's been, so for me, the revelation today has been actually traditional media and how they really will go to
Well, there's a subtle competition between
but
traditional
I
media
have always
and
addressed
social.
this and said that traditional media cannot compete with certain aspects of social media because social media is if traditional media think of themselves only as newsbreakers, which is how they operate, you are going to lose out because where does news break but where the citizen is. And if that citizen has access to social media, that news goes online. So there has to be, we've seen how global institutions have used that news is happening where the citizen is to further their traditional media reporting. I mean, BBC Africa, I'm talking about BBC Africa again, they don't take a step without asking us our opinions, telling us what they are doing. Sometimes I find it a bit too much and inflammatory. But BBC Africa has ramped up and the citizens on the continent have helped it.
Yeah.
So for me today has been like, I've had questions from certain social media, certain traditional media, and I'm like, what is that? But meanwhile, I know that while you are asking me these questions, not supportive of social media, you are taking contributions on WhatsApp. You are tweeting your stuff on Facebook.
And looking for followers.
You are looking for followers. You want to extend your influence and you want to extend your reach. So, in fact, I would say that the hypocrisy has been more on the side of traditional media.
Okay, let me take some messages before we take a break. Abdul Salam Kasalgu says, the police should find a method of dealing with abusive use of language on traditional media before thinking about new media. Lambeth Agboja says we should grow parallel with the times. Forward ever. Ghana Decides is tweeting a lot as well, mostly quoting all of you here. Okay, Basta Girl on Twitter says apparently they've had a Twitter account which hasn't been active since 2011, and she actually sent a screenshot of the Ghana Police Twitter account. Yes, and their last tweet was on 18th of March 2011, and the tweet said, Superintendent Kwesi Fori has been transferred to the Tafo Pankron Police District. He's since come back to Accra.
Not been an update.
Anyway, yeah, no updates as yet. All right, let's find some more tweets here. Does the Ghana Police Service have the technology or capacity to block social media at all? Well, that's a very good question as well. Okay, I don't understand the message from you, Manny Wilson, but Benjamin Yemmo says the police is failing to adapt to change. Social media is here to stay. We should embrace it and use it in our everyday lives. Abdul says, Nana, but the police themselves usually rely on social media, so why should it be? Why should they ban it on that day? Too many small businesses operating via social media will be affected, not to talk about the loss of communication. This one from, let's find, okay, this one is also from Ghana Decides, and there's a gentleman on Twitter, I like his name, it's such a funny name. He says, it's a fact, you know, something you said earlier. All right, Ari Wood says, does this country have the technical capability to implement a nationwide ban on social media? It takes a lot, you know. Well, they probably have the wherewithal and the resources to deal with it. Okay. Nana, but what is the IGP talking about? Please, I like him. He shouldn't act like a Kolu man. That's pretty unfair. He's not Kolu. He has WhatsApp and a smartphone. He's probably on Twitter, or he's got children on Twitter. And snap, you know, he's been snapping. Yeah. Okay. All right. Benjamin says social media is a powerful tool, such as the traditional media, but unguarded and can cause anarchy. You agree?
Yes, it can.
Same as.
But you see,
Rwanda, the genocide was not caused by social media.
I mean, there was the riots in Croydon in the UK.
Yes.
Which, to a large extent, had mobilization.
Look, I always say that the extent to which a citizen chooses which sources to trust in real life. So if you want to do your partisan news radios, you can if you want. If you want to choose non-partisan sources, you can. It's the same with social media. After you've been on there for a while, you will get to know the accounts that you can trust and those that you cannot trust, always. So it's the way you behave in terms of how circumspect you are or how free you are with any media coming. I will buy certain newspapers and I won't buy others because I don't want to, and I don't want to hear what they have to say. Same thing on Twitter. I can block you, I can ignore you, and I can even report you. Or I can engage with you, I can listen to you. It's the same thing. So it's not as though citizens, we've been building, it's interesting because we've been learning how to do this more and more. As it is, the institutions that need to be on, they need to come on and learn as well.
But I still think, now that this has come up, the conversation, again, that there's an aspect of the conversation that then says, for the minority that we have described as bad nuts, how do we deal with it? Because without completely disagreeing with you, but disagreeing with you in part, there's something called what? Something going viral.
Yes.
And I've had, of course, to write and raise issues about when was the last time you saw something original on Facebook, for instance. Because, no, hold on. There are lots of original stuff on Facebook. But per observation, a lot of times you have things going viral because on face value, people are willing to just share a story, retweet something. So the question then becomes, what kind of engagement and what measures, using soft approaches, can we use to ensure that people are more discerning? I agree, there are very discerning people who know which account to trust, but there are also all those people. And so, for instance, when the video of somebody apparently being chased out of a place in the northern region came out, which apparently turned out to be a video not even from this part of the country, people just shared them and made comments. We've had occasions where people make comments purely based on headlines, only to find out that the story at the end of the day was just a parody of a story.
Being forged.
Documents being forged. So we should begin to look at that. And as we look at that, we would need to turn our gaze also on the political parties. Because we've had occasions where it's agents of the political parties, as a matter of design, who are deliberately pouring certain things onto social media. So this discussion is really big, and people in various aspects of this society must begin to take responsibility, and we must begin to see how we can use social media for our mutual good.
Okay. Kukwa, I mean, we are going to take a break in a bit, but you've been listening to the politicians today. They've tried to talk about this issue. I don't even know why politicians feel that they can be mouthpieces for some institutions. I mean, it's just sometimes such... I just can't understand. It's so absurd.
Yeah.
I mean, the police speaks and you find NDC, men and women defending the police. Who made you spokesperson for the police service anyway? But you've listened to them.
Yeah, it's been very unfortunate and surprising knowing, again, as Kina said, how some of them use social media. I was at a conference with some political actors in Ghana recently, and they have meetings on social media. They mobilize on social media. They have WhatsApp groups with everybody in their constituency, and that's how they get information across. So I don't know how the police should be associated with a particular party or how you should feel like an attack. It's not even an attack. Disagreement with the police means an attack on your political party when it's something that's for the national good. Like, people should learn to put that aside.
All right, I'll take this last tweet from Samuel Brian Boabing before we take a break. And he says, Nanaba, we will resist any attempt from any quarters to take us back to the 1970s and the animal kingdom. On that note, we take a break. We'll be right back.
This is former President J.J. Rawlings, and you're watching State of Affairs on GH1.
Welcome back to the show. More messages from you. Okaile Jogbenuku. Okaile Jogbenuku. They're two very interesting, distinct names. Anyway, so Okaile says that, Nanaba, you should be bringing these people on your show more often. They make more sense than the politicians. That's not fair. Very soon, the politicians will say, go for your own people. Don't bring us on. Okay. There's another message that I saw earlier. I thought that was quite interesting. I should have liked it. I knew I should have liked it. And then, yeah, there we go. Okay, so if the IGP is not on Twitter, let's open a Twitter account for him. And then he will understand how it works. He cannot sit in his office and tell us what should happen. We will not allow him to ban social media. Well, he's not said he's going to ban it. You know, that they are considering, you know. But the consideration again. Remember, not long ago, we were told that NCA was also considering another one to ban OTTs, you know, Skype, WhatsApp calls, Viber calls, and what have you. It comes back to your point.
I can't speak for them. I'm not speaking for them, but just I realized that the statement was misinterpreted. I've read the statements. And they said the statement sought to start a national discourse on the issue, and then subsequently they came out with a statement.
To say that it was not true.
Again, it was a classic example of people not reading the text for themselves. People reacted to headlines.
Right.
And this was a concern I raised earlier and said that we should begin to also realize that, well, there is a problem as well that we need to deal with. And in order to deal with that, people have to be better informed, people will have to be more discerning, and people must be willing to read things and understand them before they react to them.
In fact, you can tell
before
on
it starts
Twitter,
a fire.
because of the character limitations sometimes, just how poorly a job we are doing in Ghana in the subject of English reading comprehension. No, it's like you look at it and you're like, what did they teach you in school? So again, and this comes back to, because we've been colonized, English is not our language, and then this is what we are going to operate in. It comes back to issues to do with literacy, issues to do with how well we can comprehend things. Somebody can completely misread, and you just either have to walk away or be like, catch you next time, maybe next time. So it is, and that is, for me, the biggest issue I have with social media, the inaccessibility of it in our own languages. And the fact that you have to then overcome the ways in which English has been mistaught in our schools and that itself is a conflict. Sometimes you can see in real time how people can get into, it can devolve into vicious attacks because somebody has completely misunderstood, misread, and will not back down. So there are these real issues. But again, it's an opportunity for activists and people to engage, you see. I wanted to address your issue about virality.
Yes.
So not all bad things go viral.
No.
When something goes viral, it means it's caught fire literally online, and it is spreading fast. But you see, everybody has their communities on which stuff goes viral in. Google likes to tell me that I'm in Trasaco Twitter. I don't know what that is, right?
The bougie Twitter.
But that's because I'm not saying, but I don't, certain things happen in, say, Ghana Twitter, and I have to actually go and search and like, oh, so this is what they are talking about. Yeah. So what can go viral in my online community is different from what can go viral. Of course, there are some global things that go viral, and a night on Twitter is happening like what's her name? Amber took on Kanye, or something that Kanye does, those kinds of global issues. Or Beyonce has released a video album and everybody is talking about it. But when you have your own community,
Mourinho has been announced by Manchester
United. In your community, and again, I always urge people, especially young people, especially students, to use social media and build communities that support their education, support their work. If you're a journalist, you must support your work. So that what goes viral in your community, your particular mixed bag of people you follow, is going to be different from what goes viral somewhere else. So the concept that going viral is necessarily a negative thing. I've had very positive things. I've seen very positive things go viral. Yeah. So, but viral just means that there are more eyes watching.
Yes, but then I was making a point in relation to falsehoods that go viral.
But here
go round and round before we later realize that the basic premise on which that tweet or Facebook message was based is completely false.
And let us make it clear that there's a certain responsibility that a citizen has online, where you don't necessarily have to exercise that responsibility when you listen to radio or you watch TV, because you can be passive. Yeah. So, but for instance, when you see, and I always say, when that sex tape hits your WhatsApp, if you watch it, don't watch it, but certainly don't forward it on.
Yeah.
we have to stop these things. Kukwa is very good. Like there was this Ghanaian masquerading that he'd gone to the University of Rutgers, but that was not his time. There was something else. And in real time, there was Kukwa engaging with, I think it was Rutgers, and they issue a statement immediately to say, we don't know this guy. Now imagine in terms of combating fraud and people who present themselves as agents of universities in Ghana. So what we are saying is,
So we are talking self-regulation. People on social media should begin to take responsibility. But we also want to tell citizens
that those tools that are there for you to also censure, either block people, protect people, we must do a better job online of flagging people, of standing up when somebody says, when people just go wild on something. There's a responsibility, and that we are not going to deny. So the issue becomes, how do we educate our citizens on their responsibility? How do we get them to discharge that online? These are the challenges.
It's not much different from people and certain statements they make offline on radio, for instance.
Yeah, I'll come to that as well. After this, I want us to look at utterances on traditional media. Because earlier, Sewa Amehe was at the Kwame Nkrumah Circle area, and she spoke to people about this issue we've been discussing.
Social media no kase bi be close ya e fa ba bi me no ya adwene na won say obi use Facebook no why osena na do awini mahama awini emwa enti edu sa time na close ya me mom dem didi se be boy ba tama na Facebook ni na ade na mma no ye ya e ti say isika no mo announce o radio ansa no bi ati say we ya awini no maka enti se no ba ye no free that day na come.
Some people always fight, argue about it. You know, NDC and PP arguing, insulting each other and stuff. So that very day is a good idea. To me, it's a good idea. If it's not forever and only one day it's not going to spoil anything. It's a good idea.
We've been using this WhatsApp thing for a long time. For example, WhatsApp, for example, we chat friends and families all the times. Anything. We talk about anything being live. Sometimes somebody can be boring. Maybe like you call a friend, like, I want to talk to you, let's WhatsApp. Not because of anything so serious, like share ideas, and then that's all. I don't think it is necessary for the police to. I don't think it is reasonable for them to do so.
I don't see why you should ban social media. For one point, the social media puts pressure on the election. They will say, oh, we have this number of votes here, this number of votes here, maybe putting pressure on the citizens, but it's not necessary.
People use social media to perpetrate crime, put out false information about stuff. So I think banning it, just a day, right? Yeah, so banning it for just a day wouldn't cause any problem. Yeah.
Cool. Young people speaking.
Yeah, I mean, these points are, I understand where they're coming from, but then we can also apply it to all other forms. They are saying people fight on social media, NPP and NDC. I live like close to the Kanda Highway across the street from Nima. I get morning fights about NPP and NDC in real time on the street. These things will happen with or without social media. People saying people perpetrating crime or putting out false info. People do this on radio. Sometimes the info comes from more traditional media. People screenshot front pages of newspapers and put up, and these go around, and then we later find out that they're exaggerations or they are untruths. It's not, I don't think it's the medium, and this reminds me of something Kina said earlier, but it's really a reflection of our society that we are seeing online. If people are not good at understanding sentences and linking statements together, social media is just how you see it happening in real time. Because where else would I get 10,000 people and know their reading comprehension capabilities if I don't see them tweeting online in real time? So I get why people are worried, but the problem isn't the social media aspects of it. The problem is the people. And then, like I've mentioned several times, there's ways self-regulation. Some friends and I were even talking about creating, there's this platform, I think it's called Who Have Blogged. It works with Twitter, so you can share your block lists. So if you have
I have a tall one.
Yeah. Yes. So if your friend, a friend similar to you is coming online, you have a list of trolls, abusive accounts, you share with them and they pre-block them.
Oh, wow.
So they don't come. So some friends and I have talked about doing one, but in relation to elections, because we've noticed accounts springing up around the elections. Accounts have already started putting false information out. There was this thing that someone said, what's his name? Stan Dogbe assaulted someone in Scotland when
yes.
President went for his...
It was a Photoshop thing.
It was a Photoshopped, they took a page from a newspaper and then photoshopped something fake there. And then I verified with the newspaper. I found the accounts of the editors. I tweeted at them, is this your front page? They said no, instant.
Yeah.
And so we are thinking of putting together a list like that. We are thinking of the ethical considerations because someone can add someone.
Right there.
I know. Kina, somebody else talked about the issue of announcing election results. 2012, I think we experienced
2012, exactly. In fact, and this is what I want to say is that by and large, social media also, because we are Ghanaians, we wait for the declaration. Yeah. So when we did Ghana, the first Ghana decides 1.2. In fact, I think on the Saturday or something, NPP said John had a press conference at the International Press Conference. They've won. We decided we weren't going to tweet that out. In a weekend where we've been following Codeo, the parties, everybody, we just realized we were like, no, he's declaring. It's not his place. Yeah. So we didn't do it. We covered an event in, I think, Roman Ridge or airport, where when we took the pictures, it was people had come from Nima. There was some misunderstanding about a company there that was
airport area.
Yeah. Yes. And
STL.
When the team went STL, when the team went and took the picture in isolation, it looked so horrible. And again, coming back to BBC, I had done a series of interviews with BBC. So we're like, if we tweet it out, they would say Ghana is burning. So we sat on those pictures. We did not release them. We do the same things that traditional media who are being responsible would do. So the sense that people are going to be Ghana here, we know we go and vote and we sit and we wait for the EC. We've learned that much since 1992. So no, there will not be any nobody will be usurping it is wrong.
But it's inevitable that people most likely do projections,
precisely,
or people will try to call as opposed to announce an official source of results.
Exactly, to which we will counter. Yeah. The other thing I want to say is that the young woman said, NPP and NDC people, they fight on, and so it should be banned for one day. Now, what we need to understand as citizens is that, this political space, we made it happen. We decided we wanted to be democratic and we set up our political space. Time and again, we seem to think that the political parties are either going to behave themselves in the political space to which we've ceded the space to. Yeah. You see, we've given up on the space. Hence, since it is much easier to switch off the ban, then, I don't want to hear them. They're making too much noise, right? Because on radio too, you switch it off. Yeah. Right? Except on radio, you switch off one radio station and you turn on YFM, or you turn to Nanaba and you get some entertainment.
Or Star FM.
Or Star FM, or Excellence in Broadcasting.
Yeah, thank you.
Or you go to Nanaba's account and you enjoy trolling her about Man U or supporting her about Man U.
Yeah.
The concept that you would turn off social media entirely, again, it's as though we can't control the political. Oh my God. Let's just switch the whole thing off. And I keep saying that we have to, as part of this democracy, we have to learn to take that space back. Because the political parties do whatever it is they want to do in a space that takes up so much in our lives, in our public lives. So running away is not the solution.
Okay.
But engaging it and taking it back is, shutting it down is not, honestly.
Okay. You wanted to add something?
Yeah,
okay, fine. Okay. Sorry. I want us to talk about the intemperate language on radio and TV. In fact, the screaming headlines on the front pages of our newspapers. And I was just thinking about it yesterday in relation to what the IGP had said about social media. And I said, it's actually worse on traditional media. It's actually worse. I mean, the kind of headlines we put out. Kina.
I have to say that I'm very circumspect and very careful about where I get my information, by and large, and I shouldn't really be saying this because I'm a Ghanaian citizen. But by and large, traditional media in Ghana continues to disappoint me on some level, and so then I get my news online. Also, the kinds of news that I am interested in it seems I can only get it from a Pan-African space, because again, traditional media will not report on some of the things that are important to me where other African countries are involved, you see. So, but in terms of like their utterances on traditional media, that is where Media Foundation of West Africa has that program, the monitoring thing, and it is fantastic. And we wish really that there was some kind of regulatory, you see, because there's a disconnect between the Media Commission, which seems to have oversight but doesn't have bites, because it is not attached to the licensing. People say things, Media Foundation comes out and says this is wrong, or even Media Commission comes out to say this is wrong, and then there is no, there doesn't seem to be any redress, right? But also I want to say that the utterances that happen, again, over time, Ghanaians are also learning to be discerning. More and more we are learning, maybe this is not right. Again, this comes back to literacy, and it comes back to access to information, and also why as a society we need to engage more within the Ghanaian community. Because as a middle class Ghanaian, if I am that, I can get online, I can get on social media, I can get on TV, I can search things. If I'm stuck, I'm always looking up, I'm always Googling. I Google all the time. Nice. But for a section, a better part of our in our people's lives, they cannot. So they rely on the political party who consistently they take the roads, they go into the rural areas, they go into the urban poor areas, and they engage. If we want to get the kind of society in which we desperately need here in Ghana, we also have to the citizens. We have to engage more with each other and not assume that there is a role, always ceding that role to government. Right. Because government can have a stance. They are the government. We are the people. We are bigger. And so our role in terms of engaging with our citizens is a much bigger role than the government. We are the advocates.
Unfortunately, you know, there are palpable challenges because, again, the demographics of this population. A lot of the solutions tend to be middle-class solutions, honestly.
Well, that's because we're not engaging with the people we need
to. But you should know that one of the reasons why radio is so powerful is because, I mean, how many people have access to the internet, for instance? How many people have access to smartphones, for instance, to be able to use social media? So primarily, a person's access to information, civic and political, will be through the radio. Now, we always pride ourselves with the plurality that we have achieved in this country. But again, plurality can be very relative. So plurality can be a variety and diversity in voices. People get the opportunity to say as they want, which is one level of plurality. The second level of plurality becomes the diversity and variety in the platforms through which these voices are communicated. And what I have noticed, based on my experience in radio and others, is that when it comes to media plurality based on the platforms, people, it's either a black or white situation, and there's a very little strip of gray in the middle. The people who put things out as they are and give the citizens the opportunity to interpret things for themselves. Because again, politicians have entered into the space of media ownership, it affects editorial decision and what comes out of the particular media house. So in effect, a lot of citizens are getting access to highly distilled information interpreted based on the leaning of a particular media house. So that level of plurality still has a lot of work to be done. But you spoke about NMC, and I know NMC, you know, comes out with guidelines during elections. They do summon people. Yes, there's an extent to which there's a lack of bite. But that's again threading that fine line between extreme regulation of the media and allowing free speech. That's how come there was an uproar when recently they tried to regulate the content at source, because everybody felt that this is a step too far. So it's a fine line, and it's a difficult area for them to properly regulate. What we find Media Foundation doing is normally a post hoc reaction. They study and come out with things based on what they have seen. But going forward, again, I think self-regulation at the primary point is very important, because you are the gatekeepers and you need to decide what is inflammatory. I still remember 2008 being in the studios when false information was flying across the airwaves and people marched to the EC
Yeah.
because there were all sorts of allegations as to what Mr. Faijan was
Yes.
planning to do,
Yeah.
which wasn't true. And there are people, I remember Constitutional Review Committee, who turned up and made contributions purely based on what some local champions who speak on radio had said.
Yeah.
Because their words are taken hook, line, and sinker, and their word becomes the gospel. So, citizen empowerment, but there will still be that big portion of our population who are illiterate, and so you expect organizations like the civic organization to engage these people and make them know basic information that would empower them, because information is power. Empower them to understand.
What I'm saying is that in our current setup as a people in relation to our government and our government in relation to ourselves, we now know from 1992 to 2016 that that particular civic thing may not be coming.
Right.
They are underfunded and we don't advocate enough for them, we don't speak enough for them, and it still falls on us. If we want the citizenship the citizenry that we want, we are going to actually have to do this ourselves.
Yeah. Somebody has to light the fire.
Yeah.
We are going to have to do
Kukwa,
this
you have the last
Yeah,
word.
sorry.
I'm sorry. We have just 1 minute to go.
Sorry.
Kukwa will have
What's
the
the motivation for your average radio reporter to not promote or encourage inflammatory things or sensational headlines? Because again, the two of you know this better than me. But again, I'm talking about your average reporter. How well are you paid in a profession where it seems that your popularity gets you not a better salary necessarily, but like gifts from fans? Like I know, like London people that listen to Adom FM and like a tree radio station send gifts to their favorite announcer and things like that. So what's the motivation?
international solid.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I totally, like after interacting with some journalists, I totally understand the Solid situation now. I used to be so high and mighty about it, but I totally understand it now. Because it's a matter of survival for some, and then this
Here
is
comes social
how you
media
move
knocking
and
their-
everything. So
their
I think they
jobs.
encourage it, and they encourage it because people like it, and then it's going to
Ratings.
continue. And so yeah.
All right, I have to say a big thank you to all three of you for joining me on the show tonight. Samuel Fifi Bartels, lawyer specializing in technology, media, and telecommunications law. He actually sent me all that. I had to add it. Fifi, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Kina Likimani is from Ghana Decides. She's actually the project lead, and she's with Blogging Ghana as well. And Kukwa Manfo, architecture researcher and blogger. She recently took an award for me. Next time, cry, because I would have cried to thank my fans, my family, and God Almighty. You know. Anyway, that was just by the way. But that's Kukwa Manfo. I just saw, just to remind you once again. She's the daughter of Amma Ata Edo. There's a message here that I found so funny. It's a message from George Yamson, who says that, Nanaba, tell the IGP that people are being murdered at night. Armed robbers are everywhere. He should focus on them and leave us alone on social media. Well, on that note, I have to say a big thank you to all of you for contributing to the show. Yes, and thank you. And yes, Kina officially will be very frequent on the show as well. You should promise the viewers.
Oh, I promise you.
Yeah, this is
it will be fun.
Blackmail.